It's been a while. I once again have started filming straight out the shower. I don't even know why I bother filming in this room. I may as well just set up a camera in the bathroom and just call this shower thoughts. Um, so I got a spark of inspiration. I got a day off today, so I thought, you know what? I got a couple of hours. I'm in the mood to film something. So I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. I thought, you know what? Some of my more viewed videos, the ones that like people kind of chat to me about and stuff like in the comments and everything, um, are some of the theme park walkthroughs. So I thought, you know what, let's just jump on another one of those because I enjoy doing them, and it seems like other people enjoy watching it, and it's been a couple of months, so you know what, let's let's see what's up with the Marvel Superhero Island 2019 Universal Islands of Adventure. So if you're not aware, the Islands of Adventure are something that opened. Actually, I think I went the year after they opened, so it would have been 1999, 2000, around that time is when it opened up. All the theme park history people are gonna be pulling out their hair here and that, but it opened up and there's four different islands. This is not part of Disney. This is nearby Disney at Universal Studios Orlando. But it's a theme park made of mini theme parks next to Disney World, a bigger theme park. So it has this nice variety to it. It has this nice, you can bash through it in a day. You can kind of skip certain sections if you want. There's a Dr. Seuss section that older people might not necessarily be interested in, but it's been immensely popular. But I thought, you know what, instead of doing the whole thing in one go, I just kind of wanted to focus on the Marvel section because it is very old school Marvel. It's the 2000s, so this is before the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Iron Man wasn't necessarily a household name at this point. I said wasn't necessarily. He just wasn't. You've got your Spider-Mans. You've got your Captain America. I mean, Captain America is a pretty known name, but a household name? Yeah, I'd say so. But not like Superman. It was Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. Like, those are like, the key ones. People knew X-Men. People had heard the term X-Men. People might have heard the term like Captain America. But this is an entirely different world. So as you'll see as we're going through it, this is based off of the kind of the old school comics aesthetic, not necessarily the modern movie aesthetic, which they are bringing. They're doing a whole new park. They're actually doing a series of them in the different parks as part of Disney. So that's good. By the looks of it, is a lot more MCU visual design, which is a little bit like, I mean, as you'll see as we're going through this, it's two very opposing visual styles that have their pros and cons. Like the comic book style, because it's based off of 2D art, like flat 2D art. The costumes are very flat looking, like a lot of flat colors with not a lot of little details in it. So everything looks purposefully very kind of campy. It's not particularly cool in a lot of ways. And then, as you were going through the years, you got to like Bryan Singer's X-Men, which was lots of black leather. I mean, famously, there's the line in X-Men 1 where somebody questions the black leather, and Cyclops says, "Oh, what would you prefer, yellow spandex?" There was that turning point around the time of like Blades, where comic book movies were trying to be cool. They were trying to be adult. They were trying to be, something a bit more kind of take us seriously. So they started taking more visual liberties with their costume design and the art design. That kind of, you can draw a direct line from that point in the early 2000s to the MCU now, which is, yes, there are movies with a lot of color in it. You got Guardians of the Galaxy, the Spider-Man movies, but overall the MCU, I think the visual style, it's a bit washed out. It's not necessarily as bad as like Zack Snyder's movies in the DC universe, but the MCU, it doesn't have that kind of pop art feel. It's supposed to be a bit more of an epic, particularly, you know, the like end game, like that kind of part. So they're going to be releasing a new part that's going to base more off of that, which will probably bring in I say probably, it will bring in a lot more people because that's what they're more familiar with, and I think generally it's what more people would prefer. I think the 2D comic art stuff. I mean, I'm gonna play this in a second, I promise. We're 5 minutes deep and I haven't even started. Actually, you know what? I'll just stop talking. Let's jump in. Thank you to Citypedia for your POV video. Every one of these POV walkthrough channels, I couldn't do this without you because I'm in Scotland. And, you know, I don't think anybody really wants to see a walkthrough of M&Ds. So, I was here. I'm going to turn this down for my benefit. I've been here twice. I've never really been one for roller coasters, so I've still yet to ride the Hulk coaster, which is the one that we're walking under here, which interestingly has had a couple of redesigns of the roller coaster itself hasn't changed, but I've seen the inside and the queue and the waiting section, and that has had a couple of redesigns. I think it has grown up a little bit over time. Yeah, and actually, funnily enough, there's a nod to as anybody who knows me will know, I'm a huge She-Hulk fan. Like She-Hulk and X-Men are my two. I don't know if you can see. I have a little She-Hulk collection here of my figures. Those are my things, and apparently there's a nod to Jennifer. I say apparently, it was confirmed when I asked the ride designer on Twitter, and he confirmed that yes, it is a nod to Jennifer Walters. There's one of the videos. There's a woman with a purple top, and she gets turned into a female version of the Hulk, because the general theory, as far as I collected from his tweets about it, were that they had different people being turned into Hulks as part of the video presentation of the waiting section, and it was kind of to get across this idea that like you are becoming, or you can become the Hulk, and that's part of the roller coaster narrative, is you being Hulkified. So they kind of have different representations. They got like a younger person, they got like an older male, they got a kind of a middle-aged woman, or a young middle-aged woman. But yeah, as you'll see, we're going underneath the Hulk coaster, but then immediately you got the Fantastic Four in front of you. Fantastic Four being a property that's not particularly well handled, you know, with the movies and outside of that, nobody really talks about them. The MCU doesn't make references to them, really. I don't know what the future for Fantastic Four is. I personally don't really give a shit. It's one of my least favourite Marvel properties. I really, really just have yet to find anything about them, which as a She-Hulk fan is a bit frustrating because she's been in the Fantastic Four quite a few times. Right, so this is one of the things I wanted to talk about, because when I thought about this park and I was thinking about the design of it, this thing always pops out in my head, right? So I'm going to just check if they don't look back. Okay, they don't look back. So as we're looking here, right, we've come in through the main section, which is underneath the roller coaster, right? And then down here, this is the main street, and this is where the guidelines, the visual sightlines, all take you towards. Now, what's interesting about that is there is a ride to... Hold on, I've got to flip the camera. That way. There's a ride that way. Did you spot it? I'll play through it again. So you're coming underneath the roller coaster through the entranceway. You've got signage pointing you towards other parts of the park. Toon Lagoon, Jurassic Park, those are further away. A couple of rides from here, but not pointing you towards. There is everything in this square. All of the color is pointing you towards that direction. All of the architecture is pointing you towards that direction. Even, you got like the Human Torch is kind of flying in that direction across the top of the cafe. Everything of interest is pointing you there, but if the camera turns, hopefully they'll show just enough. Back there, there's a ride back there there's an X-Men ride as a storm spinny spin thing. And the reason I don't know the name for it, and the reason I don't know what it does, is because I never went on it, because they're no, I did find it, for one thing. I stood outside the front of it and contemplated getting on it. But there's no signage for what it is, what it looks like, what kind of experience you're going to have. So being someone like me who's a bit, I'll be honest, just a bit fear of, for a non-Scottish fear, as it means afraid, who's a bit afraid of bigger experiences, more kind of like high octane. I'm a dark ride guy. I'm not a roller coaster guy. So I don't know if I'm going to get into a seat and be flung around the room at 100 mile an hour when my teeth are rattling inside my skull, which some people love, and that's grand. But because I don't know what experience it is, I would just look at it and just go, oh, well, I don't want to join the queue, because then I'm stuck. And I'm going to have to get on this thing, and I don't want to. And I think that's really interesting. I part of me wants to pull up another video, but I'm already 10 minutes deep into this, so I kind of want to have a wee look at it. Do you want to have a... fuck it, let's have a look at it. Okay, so this is what you see out the front. It says Accelatron, which already is conjuring that idea of, you know, something high octane, I guess, potentially. But I mean, you can even see there's hedges around here. Is that... I don't even... You really can't... It looks like there's people that arc around there. It's not even called X-Men, it's called Storm. She's got the little X on her, but it, again, immediately it doesn't have that brand name recognition, which, as we mentioned before, it's not like Iron Man isn't a household name. A lot of these things aren't household names. So maybe if you would call it, you know, X-Men's Storm Force, back then it really probably wouldn't have made a huge difference. But now it probably would make a huge difference, because X-Men is a whole brand in and of itself now, with the movies. Oh, it's a kiddie. Oh my god. Are you kidding me? This is real, by the way. I'm not joking. I've never seen this before. Despite being at this park twice, and twice deciding not to go on it because I was afraid of what it might be. It's the teacups. Oh my god. Alright. Well, I don't feel too bad about it, because ultimately I wouldn't have went on it anyway, because it's just the teacups. But as a huge X-Men fan, I was always a bit like half curious. I was like, I kind of want to go on the X-Men thing. But I mean, looking at it, there's no theming. There's no theming. Like, none of this is based on anything. I mean, I guess you could argue that kind of Sentinel, it's got that kind of Sentinel purple. They've got the X's on the back, which don't mean nothing because it isn't called the X-Men ride, so it's not like the narrative of it is you're being put in the danger room to practice with the X-Men. Like, oh, we're going to put... I mean, that seems like a pretty simple narrative to get across, right? It's, you're going to be training with the X-Men because they're considering you to join the X-Men. That's, you know... And then we're going to put you in the Accelatron, and you're going to find out, or we're going to test you to your limits. We're going to push you to your limits. And for kids, I think that's a great, easy narrative that you could easily push. But as we saw before, there's no room for any of that theming. There's no screens. There's no lead up. It looks like, potentially, what's in there is that's just what you get. There's nothing. Could you do it with the name and with this front bit? I mean, if it was called... X-Men Danger Room, I mean, you don't want more than 3 words, do you? X-Men Training, potentially. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, branding it Storm makes sense because it's, you know, spinning. It's like whirlwinds, but they called it the Accelatron. They didn't even call it like Storm's Whirlwind, Tornado, Tempest, you know, these kind of words. It seems like it's designed as much of an afterthought. I mean, this whole top section could be branded to look like Cerebro. Like, this is what Cerebro kind of looks like in a lot of the movies. So could you have branded it as Cerebro? I apologize to anybody who's not an X-Men person. That, but I mean, this looks like a chill out section, like ride. Put the kids on the thing, sit here, underneath the shades. Functionally, it serves a purpose, but it's hidden away. There's no signs pointing at it. There's no indication. You got a couple of lights. I don't know. Okay, let's get back to this. So yeah, all of that experience, all of that that ride is nothing pointing you. Not even like, I mean, even a facade here of something X-Men or Storm related, some kind of storm lightning peeking out from behind here, maybe. Interesting. Okay, so let's catch back up. So, Silver Surfer Candy Store. I think a lot of this section is actually food and gifts. I think in terms of rides, there's 4 rides in this section. The arcade is pretty cool. I went into the arcade and I remember just being in there thinking, like, I mean, I'm at a theme park. Why would I go to an arcade? Fantastic Four. Again, it's a photo op with Fantastic Four stuff. Would that even... I can see why they would put it in back then, but would that even fly now? Like, with all of your properties, you just wouldn't even touch the Fantastic Four. There's no need. You would touch Ant-Man and the Wasp before you touch Fantastic Four. Which, if you had said that back in 2000, hey, we're going to have an Ant-Man property, people would be like, what? Nobody knows Ant-Man. Who gives a shit about Ant-Man? You know? So this is one of the coolest things about this part of the park for me. I mean, I went here a couple of years back. Oh, I say a couple of years. It was probably a good 5 years now. Seeing the costume characters, seeing X-Men. I met Cyclops. There was Rogue, but there was a massive queue by the time I noticed that Rogue was there, which Rogue is my favorite X-Man, so I was absolutely devastated, but there's something in that's just so for the right type of person. I realize how lame it is. I realize how nerdy it is, but to be honest, I don't really give a shit anymore. I'm 31. I like what I like. I don't really give a shit, and you shouldn't either. It was just very, very surreal and fun to take a photo op with the costume character that's like a human person, rather than like the big meeting like Sully from Monsters Inc. You know what I mean? It's there's something different about it. I don't know, like because they speak to you in character, and like I remember when I went up to talk to take a photo with Cyclops, he said something, I can't remember what his leading line was, but it was he mentioned Wolverine, and I said, "Oh yeah, I know you guys don't get along, because of Jean," and I think he just didn't. I wanted to like improv with him. I wanted to have like a back and forth, and I didn't, go with that. He did the whole like, right, let's take a photo up together kind of thing, and it was grand. And to be honest, I still remember it. I still like actually remember being there and looking at him. And I don't know, there's something really powerful about that. And I think from a design point of view, sprinkling in characters, particularly in this kind of park where you're basing off of like 2D art, there's a lot of big facades and a lot of big signage. But I think the whole purpose of this part of the park is that it's comic books come to life, comic books reaching out, comic books like, bursting out of the page. And I think not even necessarily having them do photo ops or, I think just as flavor, I think that adds infinitely more than a lot of other things that I think can be prioritized. I think it just... One of the experiences I remember was I was at... I can't remember which part of the park it was, but I was at a particular part. I think it was near E.T. actually, and a costume character dressed as Doc Brown from Back to the Future came careening past as I was sat, just having a drink, like chilling out. And he came careening past, and not to me, but to the area, like loud enough that we could hear it. He exclaims into a walkie-talkie, a speaker of some kind, like everybody's got tattoos in the future. They're all covered in tattoos. Because I was like, and I looked around and I was like, we were like the only ones there. There weren't very many people sprinkled around, and I was covered in. I had a vest on, so my tattoos were. And to just feel seen, to just feel in that moment like the character reaching out to me and pulling me into that world for just a moment. It was I don't know. There's something about it it's just really, really powerful. And with the MCU stuff that they're doing with the new park, they've got so many opportunities to do something really, really big. You can do if you've kept an eye on the kind of the future of robotics, you'll notice that they're going to be doing a lot of stuff with animatronics that literally like fly. Literally, they can be like launched over parts of the park or put into stunt shows or whatever it is they're planning to do with them, which is rad and awesome, and it's going to be amazing. However, one thing I hope never goes away is costume characters, and I think with all of the MCU properties that you have now, I mean, all I can think about is how important it would be for a young boy or girl to meet or see Captain Marvel, like the modern the new Captain Marvel. Like I just feel like that's why we're here. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm getting a bit wanky with that.
Oh my God, he's gonna drink our piss!
But as I mentioned in another video, you are the advocate for the player, the viewer, the whatever. So as a designer, embrace the wank. Oh, I keep saying stuff that I don't want to be saying, but embrace the conceptual opportunities. Fucking hell, sound like a LinkedIn ad. I really wish it would be cool to see the Green Goblin, but it was like Norman Osborn Green Goblin, and he just walk like in a suit, like just hire Jerma and just have him walking around declaring himself a scientist to other members of the park. I fucking love stuff like that, honestly. I mean, it's an arcade. The floor is not colourful enough. I'm absolutely furious that the floor is not colourful enough. Look at that drab, horrendous floor. Bowling alleys and arcades should be law, written into law, that it looks like a clown explosion. I like the pink tinted windows. It's very like Cyclops. So I believe we're coming out next to Doctor Doom. So there's a lot, you can see there's a lot of theming going on. I don't know what the hell that is. What the hell is that? And they're lucky that they've, in a way they're very lucky that they've went for the old school comic, colourful comic panel stuff, because it's clashing and it's okay. It's fine that it's clashing. Like the colours can just be like every section of every part of every building can be a different colour. In fact, it should be a different colour. No two colours should be touching. No two matching colours should be touching. To make it fit that pop art kind of old school style. But in terms of like the actual physical theming, I mean, this whole section, it's very odd, right? This thing here, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. It looks like they just made lightning bolts for something else and just went, oh, well, fuck it. We could just use it. Let's just put it somewhere. In front of this plant pillar of nothing. Blazing Ketchup, maybe. I mean, I'm assuming that's a reference to something that I'm not knowing. But it's got a bit of the theming, but it's underneath this big weird construction structure, implying it's a photo op, but it's cordoned off. It's just the whole thing seems, but and no benches, so this isn't like a meeting. It just seems very, very odd. It's a very odd space to look at, right? Okay, right. So we're in front of Doctor Doom's Fearfall, which I did go on, and the only reason I went on it was because it was the first ride we got to when I got to this was the first park we went to, first ride that we reached, other than the Hulk coaster, and I still had the chutzpah in me. I had the adrenaline going. I was just like, I'm gonna go on something, yes. And I was just like, don't think about it, just do it. And I did it. And when I got on, so it's one of those ones that shoots you straight up and down and up and all that. And I got on it, took my glasses off, put it in the thing. I had a bum bag, or if you're from America, a fanny pack. And I had that. I put it in the thing, and I sat down in the seat. And this park attendant was giving us all the instructions of, do this, don't do that, and my heart was pounding so fast at the realization of what I was doing that I didn't hear a word he said, including the instruction, which I found out afterwards, keep your head back, onto the seat, because I was very, very much doing this. I was staring at my feet as we were lifting slowly off the ground, because I was staring at the distance, how high we were going up, and I was shitting my pants. And so I was bent down, 90-degree angle, staring at the ground. And then when we launched, of course your head has nowhere else to go except further down, and it crumpled me like a crepe, and I had bad neck pain for the rest of the day. But the adrenaline got me through it. It was fine. And it was fun, but after that I was just like, okay, I've done my part. I don't need to do anymore.
I'm going to get samples of both of your urine.
I still did other dark rides and stuff, because those are easy, but yeah. But again, I really like you've got the mechanical look, the backdrop to this lettering and everything is it fits that scaffolding. It reminds me of, if you look at these bits, they've purposefully put the rivets in there. It reminds me of a supervillain who's cobbled together, almost like Jigsaw, a trap made out of just whatever scraps they had and whatever people that they could hire to, grunts and mercenaries to cobble together this trap to trap the good guys, which I love. And it's on top of this weird brick and stone. It feels, if you compare it as well to the rest of the park, which is all the superheroes are very clean, pristine lines, and then you've got this kind of darker street vibe to it over here. For a villain, great, perfect, love it. Don't know what the hell's going on here. I like that it's spiky, because again it has that dangerous feel to it, but what the hell. This bit comes down and it kind of gradients into a weird point, and then this is straight and then point. What the? What are they supposed to be? It looks like they're all different sizes. It feels very rushed. We'll be nice and call it rushed. I like what they did with the street, the curbs are painted, the sidewalk corners painted, so they kind of pop out. So if you have to have sidewalks, if people are going to trip over it, make it as easy for people to see as possible, but also it fits the color scheme of the section that you're in, because you're yellow and blue for Wolverine. The color coded can work. I think the buildings they stuck with one idea, but then the sections they kind of semi color coded them with the blue and yellow poles and everything. And then I think if you come to Spider-Man, you're likely to come into blue and red. Hobgoblin. Five and Dime. That's another gift shop. See, I think that's like the third gift shop we've walked past. Don't go in. Okay. Okay, so it's the super. We're in the super. We're in the Spider-Man villain part. I've never been in here. I never really went into the shops at all. It didn't really do anything for me. I think it's because when you're only there for a few days and you only get to go once every like decade, you don't want to waste time shopping. There's Rogue. Big Hero Rogue. That would be one thing I'd be really devastated for, is if they brought X-Men to the MCU and then they brought them to the theme parks and they used Rogue from the X-Men movies, the Bryan Singer ones. Ooh, no thanks. So the Spider-Man ride is still amazing. It's still one of the best. I mean, like, the Transformers ride takes the parts of it and you know, makes it better and bigger. And the Transformers ride is incredible. But the Spider-Man ride, what I really like about it is the theming throughout it. They didn't just go for Spider-Man, like everything is cobwebbed, kind of blue and reds. They made it look like the Daily Bugle. Which one's which? Superman, Spider-Man. Daily Planet is Superman. Daily Bugle is Spider-Man. Whew. Yeah, so you go through like J. Jonah Jameson's offices and everything, and when you make the theming part of the world that the character inhabits, you take the writer and put them into the world that the characters inhabit, rather than just simply being come hang out with Spider-Man, I guess. You know, Spider-Man entering into your world, because then ultimately you've just got no theming but with Spider-Man in it. So I really like that they put you into the Daily Bugle, and have lots of newspapers, lots of phones ringing, lots of you know, people shouting at others for pictures of Spider-Man. It fits it really nicely, and it means that from when you walk into the front door to when you leave, it's a completely encompassing narrative. There's no breaking of that, because it's all indoors as well. You don't have people being reminded of the outside or other parts of the park or other sounds. You can completely encompass all of the sound and all of the experience. Control all the lighting so that you can guide people's eyesight to different parts of the, you know, if they're walking through the queue and you've got different parts of the theming and you want to pull their attention to. There's actually a desk with like, I don't know if they kept it, but I know when Stan Lee passed away, like people had put notes on there, you know, like R.I.P. Stan Lee kind of stuff. But yeah, I like that. It's why I like a lot of dark rides when they're done really, really tightly. Is you can completely control the experience of it, or at least as much as you can. I think I talked about this in the Splash Mountain. When you've got a story to tell, like a narrative to tell through different points on the ride, but people can look wherever they want because they've got complete free movement. Same thing applies for virtual reality. You use things like light and sound triggers to pull people's attention to certain parts of the points of the story. And then an example of, I think Pirates of the Caribbean does this as well. You come into a section where you want them to be completely surrounded because you want it to be this big hero moment of the story. That's when you open the floodlights for everything, and people can look around, and you invite them to look around. So you're almost kind of expanding their world over time. So yeah, I think with a really good dark ride narrative, you can kind of start by giving them the little beats and the little hints, and then you can kind of be like introduce the story, and then you introduce the next plot point in the story, and then when they're on the actual ride, you make that story kind of burst from the seams and play out in front of them, and then you've got your simple structure, finale, and then kind of shoo them off away back into the park with a congratulations, you did it. You like telling the rider that, oh, thank God you were here. If you weren't here, the Earth would have died, or whatever the story is. And you can send them back into the park with a feeling of like they just read from the front to the back of a single issue comic. It's great stuff. That's why we're here. There's a section to the right there. I don't know if the camera's going to pan over. Yeah, there's these weird pillars. I always thought this was really odd. They're just crystal pillar things, painted yellow, and they've got facades on them, but like I don't... Again, it just feels like a very odd... I guess it's a meeting point. Sometimes it's important to have meeting points in your park. And you've got like benches there for people to chill out on, but I don't know. Again, it just feels like there's an opportunity for something when it's like a perhaps there's like a low priority part of the park that when your time and your budget and your resources start to run out, you're just like, right, just stick a thing there. Don't care. Pinches a Spider-Man. Ah. There's a Black Widow in the shop there, which is interesting. Because Black Widow, by that point, again, total non-entity. For anybody, never really was in the... I think may have shown up in a couple of the animated series, like the Spider-Man animated series. And then we're coming into the Avengers section. It's not even really a section. They just got... Again, there's Storm. Where's that? For the fucking ride down the other end. Yeah, and so, this shows you Captain America gets a couple of umbrellas. You got Thor and Iron Man are so small there, it's like they're barely even mentioned. And you imagine that now. Like, I could imagine some people, particularly younger people, coming to this part of the park and just being like, is that it? Like, I came here to see Iron Man, and there's like one little poster of him up the top. Like, what the fuck is that? So then, yeah, we're just kind of gradient out back into the next part of the park. I think the theming kind of just slowly dissipates over time over this section, and then it just kind of has like a generic... but I think this style, like the flat decal style, is it timeless? Or does it have a shelf life? Do you need to update it with the more familiar faces? Like if you have an Iron Man who doesn't look like Robert Downey Jr., Robert Downey Jr. hasn't been Iron Man forever. So are those characters? Are you celebrating the characters? Are you celebrating the... Oh God. Are you celebrating the characters from their original form? Is that what people are there to? Because you don't get that anywhere else as well. So if they build the MCU parts of the park,
I'm not drinking piss.
so if they build the MCU parts of the park, is that where we're going? Like, is that where people are just going to go for that experience, and then you can keep this one here as a tribute to comic books, as a tribute to the old school. Some of the other parts of the park, like they've got tributes to, oh my God, like some of these old Betty Boop ass comic strips from America that like nobody knows anymore, and they've got a whole section. So like it is part of the park's kind of USP, like unique selling point, is that you get to experience like old school comic book experiences, and then the gritty new young adult MCU stuff lives, well, potentially it's going to live in its own section. does that give them an opportunity for this part of the park to just kind of be monolith? You know, it's you don't need to touch it, you don't need to change it. I don't know. Yeah, so that was fun. I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I now know about the storm thing. That's been bothering me for ages. It might be interesting to kind of do a bit deeper dive into the Spider-Man ride and the Hulk coaster. Maybe get POVs of them. Kind of delve deeper. But it was nice to kind of look at the outside sections and kind of think about like the ways in which they've themed it together and how it is still standing in 2021. But yeah. Hopefully it won't be another couple of months until the next one. Bye!